Hi there, I'm Cortney Pache, your friendly neighborhood collections technician for human history at the Manitoba Museum. And today I'm going to talk to you all about the story of a lieutenant who served with the Winnipeg Grenadiers during World War II. Lieutenant Leonard B. Corrigan was born in Saskatchewan in 1911. Before World War II, he worked as a postmaster. He got married to the love of his life, Gladys, in 1933, and then started a family with the arrival of their first daughter in 1934. Len enlisted at the onset of World War II with the South Saskatchewan Regiment as a second-rank lieutenant. However, he didn't stick with that regiment. He was transferred to the Winnipeg Grenadiers, and that was just before that particular group was heading over to Hong Kong to defend the British colony. We have a number of objects in our museum collection that help to tell Len Corrigan's story. One of those objects is a Japanese katana, which is a sword. It's currently on loan and on display at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa, but the story is really important and is actually told in the pages of his diary, which we also happen to have here at the Manitoba Museum. During the Battle of Hong Kong, Len Corrigan was separated from the unit that he was commanding and wound up at the bottom of a hill. At that point, he found himself facing a Japanese soldier, and this soldier had a katana. The two of them began a hand-to-hand combat, and during that, Len Corrigan used his hand to hold the sword up and away from his body, and because he was armed, he used his other hand to reach for his weapon, and he was able to fire it, which ultimately saved his life. With a big injury to his hand, he then used the sword to get back up the hill, so as sort of a mobility aid, to rejoin the rest of his unit. Once they were able to rest, he actually took that sword and he buried it. Now, following the end of the war, he was not able to recover that particular sword. However, he had a reputation for being really good to the other men that he was held prisoner with during the 44 months that the Hong Kong veterans were in captivity. Despite his nickname of being the Fighting Irishman, he took really good care of other people. And so in turn, at the end of the war, once they had been liberated, a few of his fellow POWs had gone to a Japanese soldier and they took his sword from him so that they could present it to Corrigan as a memento of their time and particularly of his story with this hand-to-hand combat. So our collections build over time. We've had the sword and we've had Len Corrigan's diaries for decades and decades, since the 1970s. However, what I have in front of me here was a very recent acquisition to this collection. So his children graciously donated his medals that he received for all of the efforts that he did during World War II. This is the 1939 to 1945 Star. This is the Pacific Star. This is the Defense Medal. This is the Canadian Voluntary Service Medal with the Hong Kong Bar. This is the War Medal, 1939 to 1945. And then because he was mentioned in dispatches, that is represented by this oak leaf. And then finally, we have the Canadian Centennial Medal. This is from 1967. When Corrigan returned back from the war, he resumed his work in the Postal Service. He continued to pursue his hobbies. He was one of the few Hong Kong veterans in Sea Force who did live well into his 80s. So he actually passed away in 1994. The Manitoba Museum is proud to house the Hong Kong Veterans Collection to help us tell the stories of the Winnipeg Grenadiers, the Royal Rifles, and others who fought during World War II. So this Remembrance Day, I'm going to remember Len Corrigan and everything that he did to help maintain freedom here in Canada.